the 1 year period of 2013 to 14, of 750,000 students that enrolled for first year higher education, 77,000 of them were reported to have a disability of some kind, mental or physical. Since then, the English government has pushed forward controversial DSA cuts which could harm these students' university experience. But what kind of support do these students get at the moment?
General kind of summary of what we do. We support students through their studies, so it could be academic and also socially whilst at university. We can support with a range of areas, so it could be support in classes, so it could be note taking, it could be support with dyslexia, so students who may have dyslexia could have a one-to-one tutor.
Sources I've used since being in university is the one-to-one support and the NAS or NUS support, and with that group they help people with autism and Asperger's, and at the moment we're just talking about Asperger's because I'm really interested to know more about it, especially since finding out when I was in primary school, and ever since I just want to know more and more and trying to understand and just trying to get more knowledge about it.
As the DSA cuts are around the corner, barely 2 years away, I wanted to see how disabled students and alumni thought these cuts will affect the future of disabled students at their university and their experience there.
To take away their support, and for someone who's just looking into universities and just is on the stage of deciding which university to go to, obviously it's going to look really bad on the university.
I definitely think if that happened, just as I got into university, it would have had a massive effect. I think, because it would have affected the number of mentors that I probably would have had, and I wouldn't have had as much support as I would have had at university, because I think in my first year, because I still found it really difficult to meet people and I needed those mentors in place, and without them I don't think I would have been able to cope. And I do think I'm quite lucky actually that it didn't happen at that time, but I do think that anyone who is just about to go into university and who's probably going to be affected by the cuts, it's going to have a massive effect on their confidence.
This issue is probably with regard to accommodation support and one-to-one support. And what wasn't clear from the statement that I read was what assessment had been undertaken by the government. They talk about specialist support still being available to disabled students, but there was really no evidence that I could see upon which they based the removal of some one-to-one support from courses.
And then it will just give the people the thought of, well, what's the point? What's the point of even thinking about going to university? Because university, it can be very hard at times, not just because of the coursework, but also trying to fit in, and then trying to find the accommodation, and then the thought of trying to find a suitable shared housing for the next year, and there's just so much to take in, and then taking away the opportunity to get support, that will probably just make things worse for universities. And then
with a wide range of support out there, including financial and emotional support for students being used frequently, the DSA cuts have initially focused on the financial allowances of disabled students, forcing them to pay the first £200 for any financial support they require. But there are fears that these cuts are only the beginning, with no hope for funding increases.
So the central government have decided that DSA will be significantly cut in coming years. So next academic year, equipment which students would have is going to be decreased, and the student will pay the first £200. Plans are towards that equipment. There will be changes to the consumer allowance which some students might have, so they have allowance for printing, for their paper, for their ink, for their batteries, and so on, which again for academic purposes, not for any other use. So that's looking to be, I think, cut from next academic year as well. Human support, at the moment, that's going to remain in place, but there may be a time where that is cut. So I think the likelihood of it increasing, I don't think that's going to happen.
Well, the government statement in April 2014 was suggesting that they were going to retain support for things such as specialist accommodation or for specialist health needs for disabled students. They've given certain assurances with regard to that. So I would suspect that perhaps as far as England is concerned, that the current changes perhaps are as far as it goes. I think what that then raises what the situation will be for Welsh domiciled and Scottish domiciled students.
We are looking at ways already and how we can, I suppose, develop the service and I suppose move with the times and what's being put on us. We don't have any control over the funding situation. Obviously, we would like to see it stay as it is, but that's probably not going to happen unless a change of government and all things change, which I wouldn't see happening because the savings they would make are significant in reduced support for disabled students. I don't think it's right myself, but yeah, the impact will be significant, I think, across the board, and that's across the whole of the UK.
Whilst the Welsh Government is dissolved on the issue of education, the DSA cuts currently only apply to England and students who are originally from England. Could there be cuts like this in the future for Welsh students with disabilities, or will they be safe from these cuts?
The planned changes to DSA were announced by the UK government in April 2014, but they apply to English domiciled students. So currently here in Wales, we've not taken a decision with regard to DSA continuing or not, and that's because we've got our own review of the whole issue of student funding, and the Welsh Government decided that they would look at DSA as part of that review.
As the cuts seem to prey on the disabled allowances and not other financial sources for more well-abled students, where are the ideas that these cuts are not damaging disabled students and their university experience coming from?
I think what we then have is perhaps a gap between what the government's expectations are and what the reality is on the ground, because the government was citing responsibilities of HE institutions under the Equalities Act, etc. Whereas clearly the evidence that we have as Assembly members suggests that there are still issues with regard to accommodation and also with regard to some of the equipment pressures on students.
With the Welsh Government taking a review of higher education into their own hands in 2016 in regards to funding, it seems now is the time that students can speak for themselves on the issue and have a voice and effect on the future. But what should students with fears against these cuts do to help?
You have to try and ensure that politicians who are responsible for considering these cuts going forward are informed of changes and difficulties. Clearly, decision has been taken at the English level already, and it's a case of monitoring the effect of those changes on the system from September 2015 when they're introduced. Here in Wales, I guess what students need to do is to ensure that they actively engage with the review process. The review will not be reporting back until after the Assembly elections in 2016, and I would encourage students, particularly those who have been in receipt of DSA, to engage with their Assembly members so that the Assembly members are informed when they take that decision after the elections in Wales.
While Welsh students still have fears that the DSA cuts may affect them, the Welsh Government is taking their own approach. With their devolved education, they will be looking further into how the DSA cuts will affect students themselves. But one thing is sure for certain, there will be cuts.